Hello, and a really warm welcome back to you today. And if you saw last week's video, you might recall that I said we were going to have a look at a Dearly 3F. Now I've got two models here out of long-term storage. I've never touched them since the start of this channel, and we're going to take a look at one of them today. At the back here, this is the one that's been in videos some time ago. Let me pick this up. I love these models. You can see this has had quite a bit of handling. The sort of whitey silver paint's all rubbed away, but it's in good condition. And I've had a lot of fun with it on the railway. And if you look underneath, you'll see traces of white grease on the gear, and the wheels are nice and clean. Yep, that's had a bit of running. But today we're going to have a bit of fun trying to get one of these models on the track, see how it performs. Now it's R.251. The tender is R33, I believe. Let's just have a look. There's a label here. R.251 060 Loco with R33 tender. Well, I'm going to pick one of these in a minute, open it up with you, and we'll go through it. Now, just a quick update on the nickel plating plant. I had a couple of people email me with questions. Well, I've not been in there because good intentions. I opened the door the other day and I found this. Now, if you have a quick look on this photograph, just at the base of my boiler, some creatures have been very busy and they didn't take too kindly to me entering my own boiler room. In fact, I just couldn't understand what all the buzzing was for a while, and creatures, and then suddenly I realized I think I need to beat a bit of a retreat. So I did, and had a hunt around and found some product, and put my own personal protective equipment on, and I went in and I have dealt with them. It's always a bit of a shame to have to take drastic action with creatures, but a wasp nest this size right inside my house, I think the only option was neutralization. So all the buzzing has stopped, but I am going to leave it a day or two before I go in there and try and prise it off the wall and remove it. So I'm keeping clear. Anyway, this video is going to involve a Dearly 3F. I'm going to set the camera up and we're going to take a look in one of these excellent red boxes. Okay, well, this is the fun bit really. I love getting these things out and getting them running, but let's just pop the older item onto the test track, and it runs so smoothly, just like a Triang Loco should. So we need to get one of these examples running the same. So I'm just going to tidy away, and I'll move this one out the way, I think, for another day, and this can be the one we look at. So what have we got? Well, look at this, a brilliant, it's a cellophane window there, Triang Hornby Model Railways, R.251 060 Loco with R33 tender. It does indeed look like the sellotape is intact on that end of the box, which is quite nice. And look, you've got this bright yellow, which is an interesting variation on the box designs. You can really see the logo and the model railways there. The other end of the box, very similar, but definitely been opened. So let's see what we get inside. So I'm just going to lift the flap, and immediately it's a slightly different style of box. There seems to be a little bit of polystyrene in there, so I'm going to pull that out, just pop that to one side. Yeah, and I can just remove an end. And what have we got here? There's something here, cellophane. I think that's a couple of figures, which is nice. So let's see if I can pull out. It's very tight. Yeah, here come the contents, and there seems to be something in the bottom of the box. So let me just put the box to one side. Okay, so what we've got here instruction and information manual, and that says R251, and look at this, 19th of the 12th 66. Goodness me, we're right back in the mid-60s here. This is almost around, well, it's not far away from the amalgamation time, is it? Sort of within a year or so. So lovely document, very crisp. I don't think I'm going to try and straighten it out too much. We've looked at these sort of things before. There's a nice paragraph on the back about the tension lock couplings. That came in a couple of years before. Just great to have this paperwork. So 1966. Right, let's see what we've got here then. So the R33 tender, let's have a look at that. You've got open axle boxes, but look, lovely condition. A bit of striation on the moulding there, but crisp is how I'd describe it. And that pin's nice and tight. Really nice to see something in this sort of condition. Now it does look like it's seen a bit of time on the rails. Those wheels have definitely been on the track. And there is the Mark III tension lock coupling. So let's just pop it down. Let me just see if I can get that. It doesn't roll particularly easily. Probably a little bit of oil, but it's going to be fine. Right, let's get the loco out itself. So lovely bit of packaging here. I'll just pop that down. Look at this. There's a little indentation there for the steam dome, and a cutout there that the chimney can go into. I mean, a little bit of, you know, a few marks on the packaging here, you know, where it's been shaken around, but it's not in bad shape. Very crisp. So the packaging looks good. So let's take a look at this loco. And those brass type safety valves almost look like they were turned yesterday, don't they? How bright that brass is. Now there's an interesting little bit of lifting or something here of that. I'm going to have to be a bit careful of that. I don't know what I'll do with that, whether I'll try and wet that or try and damp it down with a cotton bud. We'll have to be a bit careful, so got to bear that in mind. Just could have been like that for a long time, couldn't it? Look at those connecting rods. Lovely coupling on the front, and just coming off from underneath. Let me put the loco down carefully. We've got this really nice label. Remove this tab before operating the model, and do not connect directly to the mains. Well, definitely not. Be a little bit dangerous, wouldn't it? Ensure model is properly oiled before using. And a little bit of corrosion has crept onto this really nice label, but a really good thing. So I'll tell you what we'll do. Let's turn it round and just pop it down. What's going to happen? So I'll put the power on. Oh my goodness. Look at that. It's got life in it. This is extraordinary because, like I say, long-term storage. This just shows you that these, look at the gear on that. You know, it has been run. There's no doubt about it, looking at those wheels. But look at the brightness of that gear. And, you know, this is probably almost as near to new as you can get. And look at that lovely screw that holds the body shell to the chassis. Well, I think it's time to whip that out. So I'm just going to step to the side just for a second. Trusty screwdriver. So I need to do this quite carefully. So I'm just going to rest the blade of the screwdriver in the slot. And I'm really pleased to feel that it's not tight now. I mean, more important with acetate bodies, but you really want to make sure that if you've got some of these in your collection, that you loosen off all the body retaining screws. You know, when you use the Loco, you can just knit them up, but just keep them loose. And the same applies to sort of the diesel locos, the long screws that go right through, or coach, anything that's got sort of screws that hold the body. Don't want to be under undue tension. Right, will that shake out into my hand? No, it's going to be a bit awkward, and it is just caught in the bodywork. So if you bear with me, I'm just going to look for something to pull that out with gently. Now, I've got a very, very small pair of pliers. I'm just going to reach in and pull that screw out. Don't want to be causing damage to this lovely crisp bodywork. So let's have a look. As we saw before, it's got the steps there. Sort of, that would be a maker's plate, I would imagine. Just a little bit of goldy coloured paint on that. We've got that little bit of damage, which I haven't decided what to do with. I'm thinking about it while I'm talking to you. I might just try and leave it alone. But there's a little bit of whiteness, a little bit of age-related sort of, not quite mould, but just age on the chimney. I'm going to leave it all alone. Look inside. There's no oil. There's absolutely nothing to show that that's had a lot of work. And Triang R.251, built in Britain. Right, I'm going to carefully put that to the side along with its little screw, and we'll take a look at what we've got here. So let's have a look. So the first thing that comes to mind is how bright that worm gear is. And there's the wonderful XO4 type motor. And if the focus will, you can see there's no wear on those brushes. Look at the shellac on the actual laminations of the armature. You know, nothing has, it's just in wonderful condition. And the wheels are all free, saying that one, but there's perhaps no backlash much in the gear. I think this is going to oil up and run beautifully. Now, if you've got an old Triang Hornby Loco with the slightly later motor, don't worry if there's no felt pads. That's something they left off later. Sometimes XO4s and definitely XO3s, the one with the plastic gear. They might have made the bushes out of different material, I don't know. But I shall be adding a few drops of oil to those in a minute. And what I am going to do is take the brushes out, and we'll give them a bit of a clean. So I'll try and do that while we're on the camera. So I'm just going to unhook the brush spring, and then I'm going to very carefully just remove this piece of insulation so it doesn't fall off and get lost. And then I'm going to take out the brushes, because I'm imagining that we might see some corrosion or green. Now you see that brass isn't very bright, is it? I'm going to clean that up with a glass fibre brush, but look, can you see that brush? I mean, there's a little indentation where it's done the smallest amount of running, but it's almost still absolutely square. So that's the earth side brush, the return. This is where it sometimes gets a bit tricky. Just going to see if I can remove the conductor. Do not want to damage the fibre brush retainer, so there's the brush. So I'm just going to pop that down. We'll look at that in a second. What I want to do is just take this out. Now the wire's soldered to this, but if we look at the back of it, and bear in mind the back of this piece of brass is where the current is going to travel into the brush. It's a little bit discoloured, a little bit of tarnish on there, so it will benefit from a clean. Commutator looks pretty good. There doesn't seem to be, you know, there's a bit of tarnish on there, and actually now I look at it, there's something in the groove, so that'll have a good clean. not too much backlash on this motor. I predict this is going to be a quiet runner. So let's pop that down, and then we'll just look at the last of the carbon brushes. Oh no, have I made a mistake? Was that the one we looked at? That's what happens when you look. Well, they're both. Yeah, I think I got these mixed up now. Well, there you go. But there's a little bit of green on this one. I think this one actually is probably the one from the side of the motor with the red wire. It needs cleaning, and look, if I just do that, you can see, yeah, we don't want all that gunk. Right, so off camera, I'm just going to clean up these brushes. I'm going to give the commutator a little bit of a clean and a general light oiling, and then we'll come back and see how it runs on the test track. Okay, well, I've had an enjoyable 20 minutes or so, and I've just been fiddling around with this loco. So what can I show you results wise? Well, I just took the brush spring off because it was getting in my way a bit. So let's have a look at the brushes now, get them in my hand. Firstly, hopefully you can see that I've cleaned the carbon surface up, and I've also cleaned both sides of the brass there and there, and I just use my glass fibre scratch brush to do that job, and it's made a good job of it. So on the loco itself, there's a bit of white grease which I've got into the gears. I've got a bit of oil on the axles. I've cleaned the commutator, and I've been spinning this round by hand to get the white grease where it needs to be. And I've also cleaned the back part of this brass contact. Now, I haven't taken off the pickup plate because there's a bit of tension in them when you move the wheels, and I do think it ran a bit before, so we'll test those hopefully when I get it running. Now, shall I try and be brave and put the brushes in while I chat away? Let's see. Hopefully it'll all stay more or less in camera shot, so forgive me if it doesn't. I'm just going to try and get the first brush in. So I'm just holding it gently with my thumb because I need to engage this contact now and then bring it into position. So I think now I'm going to put the brush spring back on. So that's possibly a little difficult for me to do holding the loco like this, but we'll see. Then I'll slip the insulation back on to the power side of the brush, and hopefully if I maintain a bit of pressure on this negative on the return side of the brush, everything will hold nicely there. So all that remains to do now is just to get the earth or return brush in and get the spring behind it. There we go. So we're going to put it on the track, but before I put it on the track, I'm just going to gently get the brushes between my finger and just rotate the armature a couple of turns in case the contact isn't great. And now hopefully on the test track we'll have some movement, so let's have a look. So I'm still using the Marshall 3 controller, and look at this, immediately beautiful on the lowest setting. We've got some great running. So what about those pickups, you ask? Well, that's easy to test even without a rolling road. I'm going to pick the front of the loco up so the rear wheels are touching. So we know those rear wheels are picking up, and then I'm going to go and do it the other way around. So pick the rear up, front wheels are on there. A slight hesitation, but it's getting better. So maybe that front pickup is a little bit troublesome, but you know what? I'm still not going to take it off because it might just wear itself in. This is fairly unrun. Let's see just how it goes round a loop. I know you can't see the whole of the track, but take it from me, it's going round. Yeah, looks good. Well, at the moment, I'm definitely not going to take the pickups off to clean. So what I will do is carefully get the body on, and we'll go over to the main Super 4 base railway and see how it runs. And if we do get a little bit of trouble with going over points or diamonds, I'll whip off that pickup and give it a clean. But the reason I don't want to really is, look, the wiring has been tucked in so nicely. That would mean I'd probably have to release the motor or just take a little bit more off. There might be a bit of dust in there actually. That could make a real difference, so bear with me. It's amazing, you can see a little bit more on the viewfinder than you can with the naked eye. So I'll just use a clean paintbrush here just to... That looks a bit tidier. Let's try it again. So rear pickup, absolutely no bother there. Front pickup, if anything, that's a little bit better. So right, I'm just going to whip this body on, a little bit of oil on the tender, and we're going to give it a good try around the railway. Well, this is great timing to have a bit of fun on the railway, because there's nothing like the sound of a few spots of rain on the roof letting you know that maybe a bit of time in the railway room isn't time taken away from outside jobs. So I'm quite happy with the way this is looking. There is a bit of residue on the chimney, but I thought let's stick it on an area of the layout you guys don't see so much. So we've got it in the Loco service and storage area on the front side of the layout, but it's next to the Class 08 and Polly's just over there. So we're going to drive it all the way around. And once we get, and if I just walk over here, over this pair of diamonds and this set of points, we are on track that's yet to be reconditioned, and there's lots of points and junctions, so plenty of scope for it to stall. But let's have a go. So I'm feeding in the power and she's away. So we've made it over the first two diamonds, look. And round the back. Oh, a right hesitation there, but never mind. Speeding up all the time. And I've just got it on to the upward main line. So points G. Now I should be able to drive it at slightly slower speeds because we're on the clean track. So let's reverse. And now I've got a slightly shorter version of the Hornby 00 tanker train. Now I really probably should be running this in, but let's put it straight to work. So away. Oh, a little bit of wheel slip there, but the powerful magnets in the chassis are coping well. And let's just see how it goes round with this shortened tanker train. It's working hard. We won't get the full meter of its performance until these brushes have worn in a little bit, but it's doing a great job here. Nice noises. Can it get over this diamond? Not bad. Great fun to be running this. I wonder when it was last on the tracks. Now it is pulling a bit of current. Let's check. It's flickering, I know, but it's 0.2728 of an amp, so I expect that might drop a bit once it runs in. But it's making some great triang noises. And the other thing is I haven't tightened that body shell on so it might be resonating a little bit. I just don't want to crack it. It's definitely slightly picking up speed here and there. I think it's freeing up. And once we get those brushes bedded in, we'll get a really decent contact area to the commutator. So what do you all think of this little 3F? I know I'm happy with it. Well, I'm just going to bring it into the station actually, because I've got a little bit of an idea. So let's just try and slow it down. Just going to come alongside this platform. Okay, so if you remember last week we had the powerful King George VI. That's really power to spare here. Let's bring that round to the station. And we'll have a go at slightly uncoupling it. Just see if I can get under the couplings there. Didn't do very well. Let's get it a little bit better position. Yeah, I have derailed that front coach bogie. That feels better. Right, I'm going to take this off the layout and join me in a second, because I'm going to put the other older Dearly 3F on and we'll run the two together for the final part of the video. Okay, well, I had to pause that there because I needed to put the camera down just to grab this other loco. So here's the old original item. I'm just going to put these coaches up to it. Right, they do look good together even though they've got the same running number. So first away is our recommissioned 3F. Oh, and it doesn't want to move. Look at that. Bit of wheel slip, so I need to reverse it perhaps and then try again. Yeah, they're heavy, these Hornby 00 items. Just couldn't break the initial friction there, but now we're moving. All is good. So that's running quite nicely. Let's get the old well-used version underway. And that's straight off. So it's nice to see these two items together, and we are back in the mid 60s with these. So there's our recommissioned loco, and shortly coming on the other main line, the well-used item. Both making very similar noises, but looking good on the layout. Well, I hope you've enjoyed seeing how we got this out of the box and onto the rails. I've had a bit of fun getting it going, and already I can see it smoothing out. And maybe you've seen from my work on this that sometimes less is more. You know, we don't need to take it right apart. Let's just recommission these things gently occasionally and see where it leads. The sort of phosphorus bronze pickups on these are to some extent self-cleaning as the friction of the wheel rubs by them, but the problem is when you get fluff or a little bit of lubrication get on them, then you get real issues. So just sometimes cleaning them with a small brush or a little bit of alcohol on a very thin piece of paper or tissue will bring a pickup back to life without having to disturb the plate at the bottom. But as with all things, sometimes you do have to take them apart, clean them up, retension them. And what I do find on these locos is occasionally the solder connection from the pickup to the wire, you just get a dry joint there, and that needs cleaning up. Well, this is great now. I think I'm going to have another few minutes running these locos and then I'll be back down to the workshop. I've got a couple of jobs I need to sort out today, but it's been really good fun getting this item out and sharing the recommissioning of it with you and then getting it on the main track. And here it is, the 1966 Dealey 3F R.251 with the R.33 tender, and it's performing beautifully. Well, I'm going to leave you with these now. So until the next video, I'll say goodbye.